Good morning, Riverside.
Good morning, Riverside.
We are here with Riverside's famous principal from Oldham School. That's how I know him, but I also know that you also were at Ken Heights.
Yes.
The Ken Heights School. So
Union Thompson.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
Oh,
that's a school in Rumford,
yep.
the building.
Yep.
So I actually want to just kind of kind of like almost at this point want to just kind of open it up to let you kind of tell a little bit of your story, like what even got you into education
from the beginning.
From the beginning.
From the beginning.
All right. Let's begin. That I am not really a Riverside born and bred. I'm a Pawtucket boy, and so was my wife. We were both born and lived in Pawtucket for 30 years or so before we got married. And then there was a program in those days called Diving for Dollars.
Yes.
Remember hearing that?
I went to George Allen. I went to a wedding with him, and I said, I reached over to that accountant at the table because he goes, "Yeah, you're the first guy to do that one."
So she won $200. Well, back in those days, so we just went looking for a house.
Yeah.
At that time, with $200. And we ended up at the house is behind St. Martha's.
Okay.
It was a fill-in plat.
Yeah.
And so we bought the house there. It was 26 Lawrence Drive. And we stayed there about maybe 5 years or so. But there was always salt water in my blood, and Evelyn's too.
Yeah.
So we were always looking for another place, So when I became the principal of Oldham, my secretary said, by the way, she said, there's a very nice house for sale on Riverside Drive.
Down the terrace.
On the terrace. So my wife and I went over there. Well, as soon as I walked into the back of the house, which is like a Florida room, looking out at the cove, we said, sold.
Yes.
And so we negotiated. The real estate agent had my house on Lawrence Drive and this house. So between putting the two things together, I said, if you can do that, that's fine. And that's what happened. So we were able to buy the house.
And that is an awesome house.
Yes.
I grew up hanging out in there in my junior high years.
Yeah.
And that back room was awesome. I remember Kevin would have parties and set up everything around.
Yeah, I know. It's just a gorgeous house. And it was very well built. I mean, there's girders and steel girders and everything holding up that house. So, anyways, we bought the house, and we moved in, I think it was the 4th of January, and we started living there. It was just outstanding. And, of course, Oldham was right up the street, so my kids went to Oldham, so they were right nearby that they could go to Oldham. So I was at Oldham for 10 years, and then they began shifting me around. So I went from Oldham to Ken Heights. Loved it there. It was a really nice little school at the time.
Now, Ken Heights is the one that's right on Pawtucket Avenue?
Yes, across from Denny's used to be. Yeah. And it was just like a one building with a small addition on the side when I was there.
Yep.
Now it has a big addition. But in those days it was smaller, but it was a very nice group. Parents were crazy about school and so forth. I had some really great kids in the classes there. So, but then all of a sudden the superintendent came knocking on my door again and said, well, Dave, now we have to take over 2 schools in Rumford. Union Primary and Thompson. So I became the principal of those 2 buildings, which was interesting.
Where's Thompson again? I know where Union Primary is.
Thompson's is in the back, Ferris Avenue, in the back.
Oh, okay, yeah, the one's on the corner.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. Back there.
Yep.
So that was great. I enjoyed those 2 schools too. But eventually the school department wanted to build a new school in Rumford. So I was lucky to be on the committee that went out, talked to all the PTAs and so forth about, getting behind us to build a new school.
Yeah.
So eventually we won, so the school department was going to build a new school, and then they were going to close Union and Thompson. So that was the beginning of Francis School.
Yep.
Yes.
Which is just a beautiful...
Myron Francis?
Myron Francis.
It's a nice school.
Beautiful school. And of course I knew Myron very well.
I was just going to ask you.
I knew him very well. Oh, yeah. And so I was lucky to be involved in some of the design, not the whole thing, but some of the design of the school. I was there for the opening of the school, back in the 90s. And I began my career there. So I thought that maybe I could retire out of Francis School, another 10 years. Superintendent came knocking on the door. Said, Dave, I have a problem.
Yep.
I have a problem, and I need to put somebody over at Silver Spring.
Yep.
I said, well, I wasn't going to say no.
Yeah.
So I said, okay. So we went over to Silver Spring. Fell in love with that place. I had this wonderful secretary, and they're important, secretaries, to me, anyways.
Yes.
So,
Make it look good.
Yep. I began my time there at Silver Spring. Got involved with the PTA and so forth, and we had good times at Silver Spring. But then it was time for me to call it a day, so I retired out of Silver Spring.
Okay.
With a big hoop to do.
And that's our only school. It's not named after someone.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah, I think it's.
I mean, other than the junior highs and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, Union
Silver
Primary
Spring.
is...
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
That's apartments now.
Yeah. I went in there. Where my office was under the tower.
Yeah.
In that round thing. It was really nice.
And Myron Francis has like a centrally located office. Isn't that type of... Because I did some work there a long time ago, telephone work. And I didn't even know the school existed until I drove out. I was like, where's this one? I kept thinking it was in Seacon, Francis, because there's a Francis school.
Oh, yeah, no. He didn't have any room that I know of for him, specifically in Francis School. He was there for the opening, and when I did close Union, I said to everybody, is there a bell up there in the tower? And they said, yes. I said, well, let's go get it. Bring it down. So we did. We brought it down. I brought it to Providence. They have it all, solid bronze.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And then the high school made the carriage to put on it. So the kids and I and the bell all went to Francis.
Nice.
It's in the hallway there.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I used to bring it out in the morning to ring it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, some kid would want to do it, of course, so I let them ring the bell,
Yeah.
to get them into the school. So, Francis was another outstanding school.
Yes.
And wonderful staff. Parents were crazy about the school and the kids and all that, so everything was pretty positive there.
Well,
Beautiful sports fields, too.
Yeah.
And the parents' involvement is huge. I'm sure no one has to explain that to you.
Yep.
You just need that. But now Oldham, I remember Oldham, when Oldham had closed, it carried a lot of prestigious weight, so they actually kept the name of the school and moved it for whatever reason. Do you know about that? Like what that was?
Why they moved it?
No, because they didn't want to lose the name Oldham School because of... So they moved it to over here down in
Meadowcrest.
Meadowcrest, yes.
Yeah. So they named it Oldham.
So they moved that over there. Yeah. So now, because I remember all the years of that, but also one of the other things that we wanted to talk to you a little bit about, not to abandon the education stuff, but the historian stuff. If you remember, Tony and I years ago had a thing at the. Is that the Congregational Church?
Yeah, Riverside
Congregational Church.
Where you came.
And we had you come in with your slideshow.
Yep.
And we sang a song at the
And we played, and we played a little bit of music for it, the Riverside song that Tony wrote.
Yeah.
But in that slideshow, you showed everything from houses that are no longer there that have burned down, and that was one of the things. And guess what happened to that house? That burned. But I do remember you knew the names of the streets, who they were named after, and stuff like that. And then I'm sure you have a lot of Crescent Park history growing up in that area, so you got to see a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, and of course I went to Crescent Park
Yes.
as a kid.
Yeah, so growing up
Many
coming
times
from
coming
Pawtucket.
from, all the way from Pawtucket, but we
Yeah.
used to,
And now, where'd you go to school in Pawtucket? Did you go through the regular school, the city
No.
school system?
I went to all Catholic schools.
Okay.
So I went to St. Leo's
Yeah.
and Pawtucket. And then I decided I thought I was going to be a priest. So I went to our East Providence Seminary in Warwick. Lived in this gorgeous mansion
Yeah.
with the rolling hills, and it was just so
Yes.
lucky to be in there. So I was there for 6 years. I had great friends left over, but then I started to think, I don't know if this is what I want. And Monsignor Sullivan, I guess he basically said, no, I don't think you should continue. I said, okay, Father. So
Yeah.
I went out the door. And then I went from...
So that was when you were senior. So when you graduated, you just didn't want to go in that path.
no, I graduated from high school there.
Okay.
But then I spent 3 years of college there also.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. So,
Yeah.
And so after 3 years of college.
I left. And then when I got, for a couple of months after that, I worked or whatever it was. So I looked into going to, where should I go? Well, I went to the party school, the University of Rhode Island.
There you go.
All right.
And I joined a fraternity, Sigma Chi, which was just my luck because I had a class of 12. And I'm going down to the university at that time had 52,000. And that was huge. Today, I don't know what it is, 30,000 or something. Huge. So that was a whole change for me, dating and all
Yeah.
that stuff was all new to me. And luckily,
Especially coming from a preschool.
Yeah, from preschool to URI. That was
Just 18.
I know.
a big change. That was a big jump.
so I got joked about that for years that I was Father Kelleher and all that,
They'll jump on that. No dash.
Yeah. So,
Somebody hit that?
URI was great for me. I loved it there. It really opened me up into a regular guy rather than an ex-priest or ex-priest to be. So I graduated from URI, and then I went home with my parents in Pawtucket, lived there for a while, and then I enrolled at Rhode Island College for my master's degree. And so I went through, I think it only took me 2 years to get my master's out of Rhode Island College. Then I was going to do a little bit further on, but after a while I said, no, I'm tired of going to classes and everything. So I said, no, I'm not going to go for a doctorate. And I really didn't need it. I mean, my master's was enough for me to get the jobs I wanted, which were principals. So then going back to 26 Lowndes Drive, behind St. Martha's, my wife and I still had salt water in our veins, so we were searching around to find a place on the water. Well, the secretary at Oldham said there's a beautiful house for sale on Riverside Drive. So we went over there, walked into that back room, and said, sold. But we had this guy that owned it he was an old Yankee, he was really tough. And he almost pulled out in the last minute. And I had already sold my house.
Yep.
He was going to pull out, but luckily he changed his mind.
And now you've been there since
50 years I've been there.
50 years.
Yeah.
50 years in that house.
Yep.
Now, as far as like some of the historian stuff, you still have your slideshows? Do you still have those?
I'm trying to think now because I think I gave it to the Historical Society, but I can get it back if you want to.
Well, I
show
was
it or something,
wondering, one day I'd love to be able to set up a show somewhere that can get enough people and do that again, because I know you had the, and you said you had like two of them. One was it one that was X amount so long, like just an hour long, and one was a lot
No, I
longer?
only had one.
That might have been the Sarowitz. Might have two
might
different
have been
versions.
Eddie,
Yeah, because they do a whole thing on Riverside and Crescent Park.
Oh, yeah.
also.
I mean, Eddie knows all that stuff.
Yeah.